The Battle of the Monarchs. Is the Mk3 truly an upgrade to the Mk2, or are they one of the same? Let's find out. Hello and thank you for clicking on this video where I'll be comparing two IEMs from Thieaudio, the Monarch Mk2 against the supposed successor, the Monarch Mk3. These are both $999 IEMs each, and I did pay for them with my own money. So if you've been enjoying my content and you would like more of these comparison videos, a like on this video and a sub to the channel will be greatly appreciated, and it will help with my financial pains. I won't be describing them both in detail as I've already released their own individual videos, which I'll leave links below. So let's find out what are the differences, if any, between these two Monarchs, starting with the unboxing. And in terms of the unboxing experience and accessories, is pretty much identical. Same package presentation, same identical case, interchangeable ear tips and cleaning cloth. The one change would be in the cable designs. The Monarch Mk2 has this dark brown cloth like braided cable design with a very weighty albeit chunky splitters and terminations, whereas on the Monarch Mk3 they've decided to slim it down a little bit, not only in the cable thickness but also the splitters and terminations, and the difference is quite significant, and you can feel the difference in weight between the two cables. Personally, I very much prefer the cable on the Monarch Mk3 in terms of overall feel, and both of the cables have the same interchangeable termination designs, with having options of 2.5, 3.5 or 4.4mm terminations. In terms of the IEM designs themselves, this is another subjective matter, but I feel they both hold their own in terms of their design. You can have custom faceplate and resin color options for the Monarch Mk3, but even with the stock faceplate, I think they look gorgeous. Monarch Mk3 has this venom-like ooze design, while the Monarch Mk2 has this timber-like texture. They're both iconic, they both look good design-wise on the faceplate. And then we get to another thing these IEMs are infamous for: chunkiness. They are both really chunky IEMs, which is understandable considering how many drivers these shells are housing, and the Monarch Mk3 has one more additional driver than the Mk2, and from the first glance the Monarch Mk3 looks chunkier, but oddly enough, in terms of fit and comfort, at least for my ears personally, the Monarch Mk3 actually fits in my ears better than the Monarch Mk2. While they both have their own curves and contours in their design, the Monarch Mk3 has more drastic grooves to help with the fit, and I feel the biggest pressure point is on the corner of the IEMs, where the Monarch Mk3 is a lot flatter in that area compared to the Monarch Mk2, and that pushed out area on the Monarch Mk2 is what's putting a bit of pressure inside my ear, because it's also relying on that for support. However, your experiences may vary, and I would still put a caution for smaller sized ears because it may still put a bit of pressure, but if you're able to fit in the Monarch Mk2, then the Mk3 would be the same, if not slightly more snug. Now, let's talk about the most important aspect, the sound. I'm just going to briefly talk about them since I've already broken down their sound profile in their individual videos, but if I were to sum up both presentations in a quick summary, the Thieaudio Monarch Mk2 sounds like it has a more of a U-shaped sound signature, whereas the Monarch Mk3 has more of a V-shaped sound signature. What does that all mean? Let's explore a little bit deeper. For bass, there's just no question. If you're a bass head, or if you like bass in your sound presentation, the Monarch Mk3 is a definite improvement from the Thieaudio Monarch Mk2, and is the obvious choice between the two. There's just a lot more punch and slam to the bass impact, and the bass sounds a lot fuller and meatier on the Monarch Mk3. The Monarch Mk2 has some sub bass, but the bass note is just a bit too lean for my personal liking, and the punch and slam is on informative levels, which means for me, bass that you hear but it's not bass that you feel. But on the Monarch Mk3, you can feel it. For the mid-range, this is where both Monarchs have similar presentation in the sense that the mid-range is clean and clear, and even though there's a bit more emphasis on the bass on the Monarch Mk3, it doesn't bleed into the mid-range. The vocal notes on the Monarch Mk3 does sound a touch fuller, which is probably contributed by the lower frequencies, but they both present the vocals as the highlight, and the background music, while staying where they are in the background, is still audible in its presentation, but it never overshadows the vocals. It's a very enjoyable enjoyable experience from both sets. For treble, they are both relatively smooth IEMs to my ears. Even though I still put a very mild caution for treble sensitive people, I feel the Monarch Mk3 has a tad more treble presence, which is a great choice as it helps cut through all that added bass. However, they are both still missing a bit of that treble extension that helps with the note attack on some instruments, particularly trumpets, as they sound a bit further away with its edges a bit smoothed out on both IEMs. But as I mentioned before, that's why the prestige exists in the Thieaudio lineup. For technicalities, both have great imaging and sound positions. If anything, the Monarch Mk3 might sound just a tad more closed in, but it has a slightly sharper attack in its detail presence compared to the Monarch Mk2, but we're not talking about night and day differences. They both bring out a lot of macro and micro details, especially at this price point, without making it sound too analytical. However, on the Monarch Mk3, bass details are now added to the overall sound presentation, which is a great added experience. There's depth in the positions of sounds within the soundstage for both. All in all, the Monarch Mk3 brings a bit more emphasis and another layer to the experience, but it's also sounding a bit busier than the Monarch Mk2, and the Monarch Mk2 sounds just a bit more open as well compared to the Thieaudio Monarch Mk3. In terms of power, they both need about the same amount of power to drive. So for example, of my Hi-Fi EF400, I'm on about 9 to 10 o'clock on the dial. So to sum it all up, when I put on the Thieaudio Monarch Mk2, while I can understand how people may like this type of presentation where you're getting a good amount of details, a decent amount of sub bass while having good vocal and instrument positioning, I still felt like something was missing, especially in the lower frequencies, and it just wasn't my IEM of choice whenever I want to listen to some music. But with the arrival of the Thieaudio Monarch Mk3, with a punchier, meatier bass presentation and a bit more presence in the treble regions, I feel, for me and my own personal preference in sound, the Thieaudio Monarch Mk3 is an upgrade to the Monarch Mk2. While it is debatable that they both have two different presentations for different preference in terms of sound, because not everyone might want that much bass in their presentation or prefer a leaner sound, but I just feel as a whole package, with the improvement in the cable design, the IEM shell design and sound profile, the Thieaudio Monarch Mk3 just has what I felt was lacking from the Thieaudio Monarch Mk2. However, this is based on one man's experience and I'm curious to know yours. Would you be keeping your Monarch Mk2 or will it be dethroned by the Monarch Mk3 or any other IEMs in your collection? Comment below, let me know, and once again, thank you all very much for watching, and until the next experience, take care.